Headstock Harem. There's a name I've not seen before. Welcome. Looks like you are the first. Let's see if anybody else jumps in here. I don't know if they will or not. This may be a short live stream today. It is cold as hell out here in Indianapolis, so I don't. Pardon me, I'm tired this morning. Probably a lot of people hanging out indoors at the moment, at least up here in the Midwest. But maybe not. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe there's maybe there's people that are just dying to bundle up and go outdoors today. I don't know. I don't know. Maybe people like the cold weather. I'm not one of them. But I suppose everybody's entitled. Oh man, yeah. I've been messing with computer shit all week long, and what a nightmare! What a freaking nightmare! Because it's I've got two computers set up for content creation. With recording, and video editing and all that stuff. And I just upgraded, added a couple of cameras to my setup, and now none of my recording or editing software works on either one of them. I don't know what happened. The only thing I did was I updated a couple of plugins, a couple of IK Multimedia plugins, and after that, everything went haywire. On this one, Vegas won't even open, and on the other one, the other one's a mess too. Jesus. Oh boy. So that's what I've been dealing with all week. I don't know if you guys are gonna get another video anytime soon or not. So in the meantime, this is gonna have to do. Guitar Tim is here. Park Henry's here. Says he's working. Headstock Harem says I watched a few of your videos. Cool. I hope you've enjoyed them. Well, I assume you've enjoyed them if you went to the trouble to come pop in the live stream for a little bit. David Brockett says I'm trying to wrap my head around sweep picking, but if it's simply raking down the strings and back up, how are you getting so much sound? How are the fretting fingers working? It's just up and down. I'm not probably. I'm definitely the wrong guy to ask because I'm not very good at sweep picking either. I've learned. I can sweep across, 3 strings or so on occasion, but even then, it's really really simple stuff. I'm not a sweep picker. I'm not a shredder at all. I would hit up, matter of fact, I think Stevie T actually did a video on sweep picking several years ago that was pretty informative. People that I've talked to that have gotten really, really good at it said it just, it goes against everything that we as guitar players intuitively want to do when it comes to playing the instrument. And one guy in particular was teaching me how to do it one time. He's probably the best guitar player that I know. Is a guy named Dino. And, Dino, told me that, and he said it was just a matter, sitting down on the couch watching TV, whatever you're doing, just months and months and months, just building up muscle memory to the point that it's second nature. You know, it's how he learned to do it. So, Mikey Gabbard says, Robert, do you have any vinyl records? I got a few of them hanging on the wall. You know, I've got, in fact, I have 2 copies of Michael Jackson's Thriller, and you can't see it behind me, but I have a copy of Robert Plant's, is it Now and Zen? Yeah, Robert Plant's Now and Zen hanging on the wall, and I don't know, maybe 1 or 2 others around here, but that's it. I'm not a vinyl collector. You know, I've got them hanging on, a few of them hanging on the wall for artwork, but I'm not a vinyl collector at all. To be honest with you, I cannot stand the sound of vinyl. It drives me absolutely crazy. You know, dust and shit hitting the needle and stuff like that. I have no interest, none. So, you know, I mean, I prefer, you know, when it comes to sound quality, honestly, I prefer CDs. You know, I've always preferred CDs. So I'm not a vinyl guy. Picker's Grip is here. What's up, Billy? It says, how many pedals do you have? Last count, it was upwards of around 200. Maybe not quite that many, but I don't know. I haven't counted them up. I haven't counted them in a while. It's probably close to that if I had to guess. So, yeah. You guys know I'm kind of a distortion overdrive junkie. So, yeah, certainly far more than I will ever need. You know, and the ironic part is not a single one of them is currently mounted to a pedal board. I don't have a pedal board built right now because, you know, I don't, you know, everything I do right now is all, you know, is YouTube and, you know, recording stuff. I mean, I don't have a need to take a pedal board with me anywhere right now. Sorry about that. Oh, man. Matter of fact, I'm gonna have to, you know, I added a couple more shelves over here on one wall that you guys can't see, and you know, because I had so many that were just piling up, I didn't have any, you know, any of these shelves for. You know, so I added a few more to this wall, and I've got a few more of them that I still got to put up. So it, I don't know. I got a lot. I got too many. Let's see. Martian Murray's here. Blocka Delighter is here. Never know if I'm pronouncing that right. Picker's Grip said, what's your favorite pointy guitar? My favorite pointy guitar? Ooh. That I own? Man, that's a tough one. Ooh, you know, that I own. I really like this one. This is a 2001. 2001? It's a I'm sorry, 2002. It's a 2002 Explorer that somebody refinished. It was originally white, and back in that era, for some reason, all the white guitars, the Explorers, the Les Paul Studios, whatever, the white guitars all came with ebony fretboards. So this one, you know, has an ebony fretboard, which is one way that I know that it used to be white. It used to be their, you know, Gibson's antique white color. But a previous owner had refinished this with an airbrush shop, you know, an airbrush job of some kind. There's even a logo there on the back. I think what he did is he took it to an auto body shop and had them paint it, you know. So it's it's very much not a nitro finish anymore, but that finish is way more durable than nitro will ever be. So I like that one a lot. This is a BC Rich Mockingbird special. I've gigged with this one quite a bit. This is a really it's just a really cool guitar. You know, very comfortable to play. Plays great. By the way, that's one of my better played BC Riches. Oh boy, man, I don't know. Just the pointy stuff. Um, that Hammer Scarab is a classic. I every time I use that guitar in a video or anytime I pull it out for anything, that one always garners a lot of attention, and it's almost inevitable somebody's going to offer to buy, try and buy it from me. The Ibanez Xiphos, that one gets a lot of attention too. It's a original run Xiphos, and it's a great guitar. The ones I own, those are probably my favorites. I don't know. I mean, I'm such a pointy guitar fanatic. Of course, I want more, but the ones that I own, those are right now anyway. Those are them. So I love them all, but let's see. Martian Murray says, I have two boards that I constantly swap out and around. It's fun to put pedals in weird orders. That's and you can get some really some pretty cool sounds out of that from doing that unexpectedly. Just there's a the certain order of operations, so to speak, that that we're that's recommended when putting a pedal board together. And if if it's the traditional type, traditional type of sounds that you're looking for, you should probably follow it. But if you want something not so traditional, change your pedals around, man. Bean Dip Cartography says, what's the one guitar that you wish you hadn't sold? The one you wish you still had? I'm fortunate that I don't have that guitar. Every one of my guitars that I've ever sold, I've not regretted it. I just recently sold a Washburn Dimebag model that I've had for years. I bet you that guitar's 15 years old now. I think I paid $250 for it, and later on I managed to procure an original Washburn case for it. That really increased the value, and I just recently sold it on Reverb. Somebody paid me $800 for that guitar, which is my asking price. I'm wondering if I couldn't have gotten more for it, but I hadn't played it, and I don't know how long, which is why I sold it. I knew I would never miss it. At the end of the day, it's got the Dimebag, signature provenance thing, which makes it valuable, but and I had upgraded the pickups and and the tuners and a couple of other things on it, but at the end of the day, it was a cheap bolt-on neck copy of a Washburn or of a DNML is what it was. I'm just it was I bought it when I was a lot younger and I couldn't afford much more than that. So but I hadn't played it in forever. I'm not gonna miss it. The only one I can think of, it was technically not mine. It was my dad's. My dad had, and I hate telling this story because it still smarts a little bit, but my dad had a 1952 Martin D18. And that was his guitar growing up. And when I grew up, that was the guitar that was in the house. And it's not the one that I learned to play on, but it was cool to have that, have that old Martin sitting around, to go pick up an acoustic, every now and again. We'd been living in Indiana for, I don't know, year and a half or so, seems like. Dad hadn't played that guitar in years, but I still played it all the time. And it was a Saturday morning. I went down, we kept it in the basement, a closet in the basement. I went downstairs to, the closet to go pull it out and, mess around with it. And he had it in this, it was a great big, I still have the case. He had it in a great big case that my grandfather had custom built for it. And I do still have that. But I went and pulled out the case, opened it up, and it was empty. No guitar in it. So, I'm kind of like wondering what the hell's going on. Dad wasn't around, so I waited for him to come home. So Dad, where's the Martin I wanted to play this morning? Where'd it go? And he says, I took it down to a guitar show and I just sold it. And not only did he sell, this is like, I think this is 92. That guitar was probably worth every bit of $3 or $4 grand at that time. And he sold it for $800. $800 somebody paid for a 1952 Martin D18. If there's one that I can think of that was ever kind of sort of in my possession that got away, that would be it. But that was technically never my guitar. It was always my dad's. Still, I would never have done that. Let's see. Jason Emmerich says, just bought my first board. It's a PT Pedal Train Nano Plus. You know, if I were going to build a pedal board right now, for years, I mean, I just used to build these great big giant pedal boards, 15 pedals or more on them, you know, that were like great big fucking suitcases to lug around everywhere, which was fine when I was younger in my 20s and 30s. You know, and I do still have a Holy Boards, you know, a model they make called it, I don't know if they still make that model anymore or not, but it's called the Dragonfly. So and it's another great big giant thing. But if I were going to build a pedal board right now, it would probably be with the one that's in this case, which is that big. I would, be very, very minimal. Whoops. It would be very, very minimal. Oh, whoops. It would be very, very minimal and much easier to carry around because, like I said, I'm not in my 20s and 30s anymore. I'm 45 years old now, number one. Number two, I find myself needing to hide behind, a bunch of effects a lot less than I once did. Check it out. We got a troll / hater in the thread. Says Quentin James says, "Is this where we tell you that you suck and you don't know what you're talking about?" Doe. Says, "I managed music stores for 17 years. Are you in the industry?" I think we've seen enough from Mr. Quentin James for now. Let's see. Where are we? Mikey Gabbard says, "My JCM 900 is sounding all flubby and scratchy on the low end. Do you think I just need new tubes?" I don't know what version of JCM 900 you have. Honestly, if it sounds scratchy and low end, I mean, it could be tubes. Might be speakers. You may have blown a speaker. I don't know what you're running it through, but scratchy and flubby on a Marshall, that's a bad speaker, or a cab that just doesn't sound good through. With Marshalls seem to be really, really picky on cabs. I very seldom run a Marshall through anything but a Marshall cab. And a good one, not like an MG cab or something like that. But, let's see. Yankee Peters. Hi, Robert. Other than a Klon, what do you think is the most overrated pedal? It's tough to beat the Klon, man. It's tough to beat the Klon. As far as overrated, I don't know. Honestly, that may be it. I really can't think of anything else that's anything else out there that is, I mean, and the Klon tone itself is not bad at all. I mean, there's a gazillion different Klon clones out there on the market, both past and present. I mean, hell, can I grab one with it? Do I have one within reach anywhere? I surprisingly don't have one within reach, but I mean, there's several. Hell, Park's Custom Pedals, Mr. Park Kingery, who's in the chat right now, has a Klon, a Klon overdrive, Klon style overdrive, and it sounds great. I mean, the Klon itself is, there's nothing wrong with it. It sounds great. It's just, the overrated part comes from people paying stupid fucking money for those things now. And they become a collector's pedal a lot more than any serious player would ever use one nowadays. So, as far as, what else, anything overrated, pick, my opinion, I mean, you guys know me, pick your favorite fuzz pedal. I don't know that I've ever heard anything, any great song that was ever recorded with a fuzz that I don't think would have sounded better through a cranked up Marshall or something. Let's see. T25 is here. Burnt Ove Nilsson Hennestad. So overdrive distortion is great. I miss that every time demos are made on YouTube. It is heavy metal genre. Would love some more punk songs being showed. Yeah, well, God, I don't know. I can't really think of any, any punk, any YouTube channels that are, like punk centered, centered around punk music, or punk styles. So you're right. There's plenty of rock and metal channels out there, that, myself included, but, as I'm kind of somewhere in between both of those, but can't think of any punk YouTube creators. Park Kingery says the new Solar X model looks sweet. It definitely caught my attention. It's one of those. It's one of the new high end models that he's having built in the UK somewhere, by a custom builder somewhere. I don't know, but it's. I think the last thing he said in one of the videos that he did on it was, if you're expecting this thing to come in at a fairly at a affordable price point, it's not. I looked it up, and it's I think they're $3,000 or more. I think more than that. But you're right, they are really cool looking guitars. I would love to get my hands on one. It's kind of a Jackson Warrior, Ibanez Xiphos kind of body style. Block of the Lighter said, yeah, he said he was kidding. Yeah, I didn't believe that either. So, so he logged in under a different account. Yep, see ya. Let's see. Let's see what he says. Quentin James here. I was kidding. You did a few videos on trolls. Sometimes what I think is funny isn't. My bad. I'm a sub. I like your channel. Well, I appreciate it, but I don't have time for dicks. Let's see. Jack Zimmer says, I have a Soul Food. I have that. That's honestly, of all the clone pedals, the Soul Food is one of my favorites. The Soul Food's a great pedal. And honestly, I think pretty underrated. Some people say they hate it, which I don't understand. Up to a certain point, it sounds like any other clone pedal out there. I don't know what there is to hate about it. It does get a little bit gainier, than a typical clone. So maybe if that's what you don't like about it, then turn the gain down. But beyond that, it's a pretty. I think it's a great pedal. Park Kingery's, his is a clone for metal, so I demoed that. That's been a few years since I did that video. That was a cool pedal though. That was a fun video to do. Flux says Robert, what are you listening to in the car these days? I'm still not used to seeing my first and last name highlighted. I'm still used to seeing Robert's Guitar Dungeon, which is now defunct. What do you listen to in the car these days? Here lately, I've been playing the ever-loving shit out of Five Finger Death Punch's new record, Afterlife. I love it. I think it's kick-ass. I think Afterlife, and their last album, F8, is also still very much in the rotation. I'm a big Five Finger Death Punch fan, and they came out with a new record a few months ago, and I'm back into listening to them a lot. Same with Ghost. Been listening to Ghost a lot. Let's see. Their new record is their new record's okay. There's a couple of really, really good. It's like a typical Ghost record. There's a couple of really, really good songs on it that I really enjoy listening to. And then there's a bunch of other stuff that's very, very okay, or less in some cases. But that's Ghost. They write in so many different. They write. Tobias Forge writes songs in so many different styles. It's. He's trying to cater to a larger audience, which is smart. But album wise, probably those. I dug out here recently. There's an old band. A new metal band from the early 2000s called Level. I dug out their self-titled record here. I lost it a long time ago, and I couldn't find it anywhere. It's not on iTunes. It's nowhere to be found. Not on Amazon. I couldn't find anywhere to download it. Finally, I went to the dude's website, and Billy Brian. I can't remember his name now. I have to look it up, but I found his website, and he's still selling the record himself directly. So I bought a copy directly from him. So I've been listening to that, and I guess my typical playlist rotation of Godsmack and Breaking Benjamin and Metallica and Megadeth and all that stuff. So, the ones that have been on repeat here the most recently have been Five Finger Death Punch's Afterlife and Ghost's Imperium? I think is the name of the record. Whatever the name of the record is, Imperium something. Here, let's find out. Artists. G for Ghost. Impera. Let's see. Picker's Grip, what the heck is on your right to you? Yellow round things. I don't, to my right, I don't know what you're, the bottom, down here on the floor, that's the bottom of a Hercules guitar stand. You know what, if you're talking, you must be talking about the tip jar, the virtual tip jar that's on the screen in front of you. That's what that is. Yeah, it's nothing here. It's a virtual thing on the screen. Right there, right there above the caption. Here, matter of fact, I can make that bigger and much more gooder so people can see it. Because that does look a little more like something just sitting here chilling on the thing next to me. Dean Richards says Ryroclone is amazing without the extra noise. Not familiar with that one, but I will take your word for it. Like I said, there's so many Klon pedals out there, man. There's so many Klon pedals. There's even more Tube Screamers, Tube Screamer clones, and God, I mean, it's impossible to keep up with all of them. See, Janice Lawless here says, "Hi, I didn't know you were on." Hello, Janice. I am here. We're here just hanging out. MJ down there in the super chat with the rock on. Thank you, sir. I appreciate it. Or maybe it's a ma'am. I'm not sure. Just MJ initials. So I hear MJ and I think either Michael Jackson or Michael Jordan. So just by default. But thank you very much, regardless of gender. Let's see. Allen Aviation says, aside from the ones you already have, which Ernie Ball models do you also like? Well, the only one that I have is my Gold Majesty. Honestly, if I were going to buy more, it'd be more Majesties. Non-Majesty guitars, though. I mean, the Sabres are cool. Oh boy. I remember trying the Armada when it came out years ago, and it was kind of a flop for Ernie Ball. It was the first neck through guitar, but it didn't do very well for me because, number one, it was a fucking boat anchor. It weighed like 10, 11 pounds, and which is very unusual for Ernie Ball guitars. And and the neck on it had a really great big fat neck. So I mean, I think they were trying to cater to the old school Gibson players that like those great big 50 style necks, and I just didn't jive with it. I wouldn't mind getting my hands on another one though, just to see if I didn't happen to get my hands on a lemon. Music Man doesn't put out lemons very often at all, but who knows? Maybe the one that I did, that was the case. So, long story short, I wouldn't mind getting my hands on the Armada. Like I said, the Sabres are cool. Anything they've done with a neck through, I'm on board. The Albert Lees actually are cool. I really like the Albert Lees. And last but not least, would be the Axis. Later on became the Wolfgang. But those you can't find anymore. When you do find them, people are asking stupid money for those. Jackson Emmerich says, I have a Marshall MG30FX. Are they decent in your opinion? I enjoy it. Well, the truth is, if you enjoy it, who cares what I think? And I've said that over and over and over again. If you enjoy it, you shouldn't even be bothered to ask me because what I think doesn't matter. If you love fuzz pedals, despite me making fun of them, more power to you. I'm not making fun of you for liking fuzz pedals at all. I'm just making fun of fuzz pedals because I hate them. But regardless, nobody at all ever should buy or not buy a piece of gear based on what I think. It should only be based on what you think about it. On top of amp, I'm assuming you were talking about the tip jar. That's the only yellow thing that I can see that's within screenshot. So, let's see here. Pardon me. Gear Junkie 35 says, hello, tone chasers, pedal heads, and general audio miscreants. Hope all are well and warm. Have a good day, Park. Going back to work. Gear Junkie 35 says, when the Boss SD1 into a fuzz face with DSD1 set everything at noon, it completely changes the character of the fuzz. I get why people don't like them. Took me a while to like them. Once you sculpt a fuzz pedal with a drive pedal in front of it, it's a whole new sonic territory. I used to hate fuzz too. I've tried it. I've tried putting overdrives in front of them and behind them and all that. The only one that I can say that I really like is that Animalizer fuzz pedal that I demoed recently from TX Pedals. That's the only one. And honestly, that was really kind of more of a, I don't know. I mean, it's definitely, it's fuzzy in a lot of ways, in a lot of settings, but it's got also a lot of like overdrive fuzz. So, and I get, and I also, I really don't like, I don't like, I hate the idea of having to use another pedal or another something or other, to get me to like something else that I hate. Something, anything, guitar, amp, pedal, whatever it is, should sound good on its own. Not because it's being used with something else. It's another reason why I don't like modifying guitars and amps and stuff. If it doesn't sound good, from the factory, it ain't for me. I'd rather spend the money on something that does sound good from the factory. Headstock Harem says, had an Ernie Ball Cutlass for a while, wasn't the biggest fan of the pickups and the fact it needed a battery. The neck was great though. I like the Cutlass. That if you're not familiar with that one, that's basically their Strat model. And I think they're built really, really well, and they're they are active. Pretty much every Ernie Ball guitar is active, but they are really, really well made, and when you compare it to the equivalent Fender, it's probably a couple $100 cheaper. So, and that's with Ernie Ball stuff, across the board. Jackson Emmerich says, I have a Silicon Fuzz Face Mini. Had to learn to like it. Now it's fun to play. Yep. Like I said, man, I'm not saying anybody should or shouldn't like anything. I'm just, my job as a content creator on YouTube, is to create entertaining content and, entertaining and or informative. And if I can do both at the same time, that's, an even bigger win for everybody. But, the entertaining part of that equation, oftentimes means, taking my opinion on a piece of gear and and turning up the volume on that opinion. Why? Because it's more entertaining. It's basically honestly what I don't think I've ever talked about this before. What I do, like with the worst of videos that that get so many people bent out of shape. Especially when they see their favorite amp or guitar list or whatever it is. Those are. It's basically the exact same concept of. You guys know I'm a big professional wrestling fan, and the most successful. Pardon me. The most successful wrestlers, the most successful gimmicks are those that are just extensions of the actual individual's actual personality. Mick Foley talked about in his one of his books that one reason why why the Mankind character was so successful was because it was just a total, it was an amplified extension of his own insecurity. Same thing with Stone Cold. It said that he did the exact same thing. The Undertaker. You watch anything The Undertaker has ever been in on WWE programming, that's him. That's not how he is when he's sitting at home, watching TV with his kids or anything. But, but that is an extension of his actual personality. And that's why people like that have always been so successful. So, basically what I did, I just took that same concept and applied it to some of my videos. So, particularly, the ones when you see me rant and rave and, making fun of shit, really what that is, just, an extension of, one, my partially my dry sense of humor and partially my own insecurity, about a number of things. So, there it is. Like I said, I don't think I've ever talked about that before. Dean Richards says, "What do you think about the Pantera tribute? I was lucky enough to see him during the Far Beyond Driven with Sepultura and Biohazard. I think it's cool for anyone who didn't get to see him. I got to see him on that tour as well, and to be honest, I don't remember much of it because I was still in my drinking days. Number one, and number two, I got my ass beat. It got to the point I was afraid to go see Pantera again after that because those crowds were so fucking rowdy. It was. You go to a Pantera show, you need to walk out expect to walk out with more than a few bumps and bruises. So, as for the new tribute show, the new tribute version of it, honestly, I don't know who they could have gotten. Dimebag and Vinny aren't around anymore. If they want to do this, there's still two members left. If those two guys really want to do this, you tell me who else they should have chosen besides Zakk Wylde and Charlie Benante. You tell me. I'll wait. There's nobody. Everybody knows that Dime and Zakk were very, very close friends. So there's nobody that they should have chosen over Zakk to, I don't want to say replace Dimebag, but to play Dimebag's parts. Same thing with Charlie. Charlie Benante, by the way, if you're not familiar with Anthrax or any of his work, Charlie Benante is a monster drummer. So, I think that tour is making an indie date. I think I'm actually going to try to catch him if I can. But I'm going to sit in the pavilion, not out in the fucking lawn where the mosh pits always take place. Gear Junkie 35 says, "I totally get it. Fuzz has its own special character. It's definitely an acquired taste." I don't even know it's an acquired taste. There's a lot of people out there that love it, and I know, and there's plenty of those people that love it that said they didn't have to learn to love it. They just fell in love with it immediately. A lot of the newer doom bands, a lot of that stuff, it just sounds like, mindless droning to me, but, a lot of the new bands swear by those things. There's nothing wrong with fuzz. There's nothing wrong with fuzz. I've never said there's anything wrong with fuzz. I've just said that I don't care for it. And I don't use it, and therefore I'm going to make fun of it. So... Block of the Lighter says, "I have nothing with fuzzes. Friends of mine, Taiwas, Sweden, use them, though they get a cool sound from it. And then he goes on to say, I have an old Shin I companion fuzz wire. I only use it when I want to deliberately annoy people. And I do own fuzz pedals, believe it or not. I own half a dozen or so. I've got a couple of, what do I got? I've got the TC, which one? The Honey Pot. The Honey Pot fuzz, which I I don't remember if that's a, well, I think it's a Big Muff clone or something. I don't know. You know, I've got that one. I've got the Joyo Voodoo Octave, which even a lot of fuzz fanatics seem to hate. That one I think is kind of cool for some things, but you know, I've got a deluxe Big Muff, deluxe Big Muff Pi, that is. We got the base version of that pedal. You know, the Animalizer that dude sent me. Let's see. Even though it's called metal, labeled as distortion, this is actually a fuzz pedal, which I wasn't expecting. I thought it was a silicon fuzz. You know, fuzz, basically, you know, I think it's like a fuzz face style fuzz. You know, I mean, among others. I mean, I do own fuzz pedals. I don't use them very often unless I'm doing a specific demo for something fuzz related on on my channel. But but I do own fuzz pedals. You know, and it's not that I. It's not like I've never plugged into one before, but let's see. Jack Stenberg says, "You're one of my favorite small channels." Thank you very much. I appreciate that. Very kind of you. Gear Junkie says, "Got a few to annoy only pedals myself." There's a few. I own a few of those. Metal Muff, for example, when only nails on a chalkboard will do. Yeah, there's a garbage distortion pedal too. My God. Oh man, I don't hate on too many distortion pedals, but that one's bad. That one is bad. Let's see. Blocked a Letter says, "Now, believe it or not, folks offered very good money for the Shin A. I don't know how that's pronounced. It was a gift from my guitar teacher, though, and my first pedal won't go anywhere. I still have my first pedal also. You know, in my first pedal and my first guitar, I don't have my first amp anymore, but I do have my first pedal, my first guitar. My first pedal was a Yamaha MBD20M multi-band distortion, I think it was. Shittiest sounding distortion pedal I had ever heard, up until I heard the Metal Muff, and I do still have it. I actually did a video. The title of the video is "This the Worst Distortion Pedal Ever?" And for whatever reason, that video, that was the first time I actually didn't get that horrible of a sound out of it. So who knows? Maybe it's just experience. My ear has changed, or more likely, it was probably had more to do with what I was running it through. Pantera Ozfest 99. They were given 25 minutes. It was insane. The rumble of the pit rivaled the outdoor speakers. I didn't go to that one. I went to, maybe it was Ozfest 97. I think they played at Ozfest 97 too. No, maybe that's different. Shit, I don't remember. I was still drinking back then. I went to a lot of metal shows, and a lot of them kind of blended together back then. First time I saw Pantera opening for Suicidal Tendencies in Exodus at the Riviera Theater in Chicago. That was a long time ago. They were supporting Cowboys from Hell tour, and these nobodies absolutely stole the show. They weren't doing that they hadn't been doing that for very long at that point. They changed. If you don't know this, Pantera had to go and change their entire style. Because they eventually they started out as basically an 80s, what we now call an 80s hair metal band, and everybody thought that they were the biggest fucking posers that anybody had ever seen. So they went and changed their look, changed their style, and came back out as a thrash metal band. That's when they got signed and did Cowboys from Hell, and the rest is history. But prior to that, you remember, Dimebag said in interviews, he used to play Eruption at just about every show. So. See you, Jackson. Alex 2112, love the show Saturdays with Robert. Thanks, man. I don't do this as often as I used to, and some days. I'll be honest. The reason why I'm doing this today is because I don't, because with both of my computers down, I'm not able to deliver you guys a regular, a regular video upload here right now. So like I said, for right now, this is gonna have to do. Dr. Pepper, Diet Dr. Pepper, actually. I very, very seldom drink regular. I drink diet soda pretty often. I very seldom drink regular stuff. Too much sugar. I used to make exceptions when we'd go out to eat at restaurants or something like that, but even nowadays, I don't really even do that anymore. I've just got into the habit of whatever I'm drinking, no sugar in it. There are exceptions, but generally speaking. My niece Hurt says I have my first guitar amp and pedal, PV Bandit, Hammer Slammer, and Metal Zone. Hammer Slammer. Not a bad setup. The especially the Bandit, the Metal Zone. I still really kind of want to grab myself a PV Bandit, a Red Stripe PV Bandit, just to see what I've been missing. Ozfest 99 was the first real Sabbath reunion. There were tears everywhere, tears of joy. It was fucking magic. Yeah, that's true. I forgot about that. That was the first time that those four played together in 20 years at least. Something like that. That's about right. 70. I can't remember what year specifically they broke up. But it was late 70s, I think. Ozzy kind of flailed in the wind, drinking and drugging himself, nearly to death. And then finally, 81? He came out with the Blizzard of Oz that revitalized his career. Something like that, anyway. Janice Lawless says, I guess that's what Ministry did, changing their style from when they were new wave with their song Mercy Dash, and then changed it all up. Yeah, there's certainly a history of bands and artists doing that throughout the years. Probably the most the most prominent one that I can think of is Michael Bolton. You guys remember he started out in a metal band. He was a lead singer, front man in a metal band, and he sang and played the part. They're actually a really good band, but it was this is back in the '80s, when metal bands were everywhere, and they weren't garnering any attention. So he put the metal band in the rearview mirror, and went on to be sing pop ballads and stuff like that there wasn't a whole lot of back then. You know, at least not in the style that he was doing. You know, and then he went on to have a huge career. So, you know, that is, you know, there's certainly some people that have, you know, some artists that had to do that early on just, you know, so that they could break into the industry and be successful. You know, not everybody gets to play what they want. What Marshall is that behind you? JCM 900 dual reverb, 100 watt, 4100. It's 1990, first year that they were made. Like the first year and a half they were made, they came with EL34s in them instead of the 5881s that they switched to later on. And you know so it does sound a little bit different than your typical 4100. Maybe not quite as much gain, but it's got a lot more mid range on it. So. Yep, I've had about 10 years now. I love it. I love my 900s. Yep, Janice Law says, no kidding, I'll have to check out Michael Bolton. What was the name of his band? I always forget the name of his band. Michael Bolton, what is the name of it? Speaking of his career, Blackjack. He's part of a hard rock band called Blackjack that once opened for Ozzy on tour. So you know, I mean, they were out there, but you know, he toured with Ozzy and opened for, and you know, he toured and opened for Ozzy, but a lot of people toured and opened for Ozzy. There's a music video up here. You know, it's listed under Michael Bolton, but I think it's actually his. I think it's actually Blackjack, a song called "Everybody's Crazy." But I don't know. I may be wrong about that. I don't want to play it because it'll demonetize this whole video if I do. So, Michael Bolton wrote "Forever" for Kiss. The song "Forever" for the band Kiss. You mean? Did he really? I didn't know that. Interesting. I'm a huge Kiss fan too. Hang on 1 second. Let's just find out. Kiss is hot in the shade. See, Kiss is hot in the shade. There's Forever. We're just going to look at one of the writers' credits. Forever. Paul Stanley and Michael Bolton. I'll be damned. Song written by Paul Stanley and Michael Bolton. I had no idea. Wow. A lot of these other songs were written by, Desmond Child is a big name producer. Tommy Thayer helped write The Street Giveth and The Street Taketh Away. Tommy Thayer is Kiss's current guitar player, but at the time he was Gene Simmons' personal assistant or something. He was not part of the band. Bruce Kulick was a guitar player back then. A couple of these songs were co-written by Vinnie Poncia. I don't know who that is. Maybe a producer. We'll see. Was Eric Carr still in the band back then? Or is he... Yep, sure was. Wow. Michael Bolton. Wow. That was and Forever. You know, this is a pretty big album for Kiss back then. By the way, you know, Forever was probably the most popular song on there. I had no idea it was written by co-written with Michael Bolton. That's pretty awesome. In fact, that's really the only song. It's really the only song. Really the only song on here that went on to be a big hit for them. Maybe I guess that album wasn't as big as I thought it was. But wow. Dean Richards. Let me make sure. Hang on a second, Dean. Dean Richards, best non-metal guitar or guitar player. Best non-metal guitar player, like non-metal, non-rock, non-shred, none of those guys. Ooh. Frank Gambale's up there. Boy, let's see. Clapton. Wow. Well, I don't know. I can't think of too many of those types of guitar players that I really listen to very, with any kind of regularity. Specifically because of that. Eric Johnson. I don't know. I guess he's probably more of a blues kind of guy. I don't know, maybe. Boy. I don't know. I'm gonna have to give that one some thought. There's really, I guess it's not really my thing. I don't get into country music at all. So there's a ton of great country players out there, but I just don't get into it. Dripping Glass has a lot of talk about the IK Tonex profiling pedal. It has an LED display from '95. I haven't honestly. I haven't watched any of the demos because I'm a little sour on IK Multimedia at the moment because it was their plugins that fucked up both of my computers. So I've had to uninstall and reinstall their plugins a number of times, and like I said, I still don't have it fixed. A lot of people, even before all the videos started dropping, what was it, Thursday? I even had a couple of people that were anticipating it and texting me before they all dropped on YouTube, and asking me about it. So it's definitely got a lot of people's attention. People are all about the profiling stuff right now. It's what is a $300 or $400 pedal. That's a much cheaper alternative to a Kemper. So. My niece heard is Kulick on that CD. Yes, he is. Bruce Kulick played on just about, he played on all of those albums throughout the late 80s and early 90s. He was, I can't remember what his first record with them was. Animal Eyes, maybe. I have to go back and look, but Bruce Kulick was by far the best guitar player Kiss ever had. By far. They had some good guitar players, but Bruce Kulick was just, he was the guy that was just on a totally different level from all the rest of them. He's a really, really talented guitar player. Sevenity popping in to say hello. My niece here says, who plays drums on that record? That was Eric Carr. I looked that up too. I couldn't remember if he had passed on by then or not. I think the first non-Eric Carr record though was Revenge, which I think was the one after this one. Eric Carr passed away, and then they came out with Revenge, which was the first Eric Singer record. Of course, as we know, Eric Singer's pretty much been there ever since, other than the the short reunion period there in the late 90s. Non-existent human in the super chat. Thank you, sir. Sorry I didn't get to you sooner. Rest in peace, RGD. Thanks for keeping the channel going. Thanks for sticking with me through the name change, which is probably going to be more growing pains than not. But it's necessary and quite. And I've grown to hate the old name so much. It was just time. Time, bite the bullet, get it done. Ian's Guitar Jack says Brian Setzer for me. That's Brian Setzer is certainly a top candidate. That dude doesn't age either. He looks just like he did back in the 80s. See, John McLaughlin, another fine candidate. John Schofield, another fine candidate. I'm not familiar with Junior Brown. Gilmore, Gilmore's a rock guitar player though. Pink Floyd doesn't get into metal territory, but they're one of the prominent rock bands. But if you're going to include Gilmore, then I'd have to know quite if Gilmore's fair game, then so is Knopfler, Mark Knopfler. Mark Knopfler's badass. Eccentric says, when thinking about playing my guitar through a bass amp, I play down-tuned, sludgy metal riffs. Do you think that'd be a bad idea to use a bass amp? Cheers from Ohio. No, not necessarily. I mean, the Fender Bassman originally started out as a bass amp. It just happened to be guitar players that took to it more than bass players. Honestly, one of my very favorite guitar tones is a Les Paul plugged straight into a Ampeg SVT 810 stack. Crank up which is SVTs are all tube. Crank one of those things up, and it's a pretty unique. Rolling Stones have been known to do that. So it's a really, really, really cool tone that I've never heard out of anything else. So. But if you're doing it more for the sludge stuff, God help, Josh Homme, I never have known how to pronounce his last name, but particularly back in the Caius days, he's been doing that forever. I guess he plays guitar amps, but he's been using a great big 15-inch bass cabinet as part of his rig, specifically for that bottom end stuff. And this tone sounds killer. So, like I said earlier, man, who cares what I think, man? If it sounds good to you, do it. Janice Lala says, I like the channel name. I'm assuming, the channel name is my name, so, I'm glad you like my name. Block of the Lighter says, I think the Hiwatt 200 was a bass amp. Friend has one, still trying to convince him to sell it to me. Great pedal platform too. I don't know about that. I think the Hiwatts, if you're talking about the, let's see. This is the DR10. The 103 was obviously a guitar amp. I think they did a whole, that they did one that got all the way up to like a 400. Those were all guitar amps. No, I stand corrected. Hiwatt DR201 custom 200 watt bass amp head. That's how one website called SonicCircus.com has it listed. Not familiar with them. There's a reverb listing for one. Somebody trying to get $4,000 out of it. Oh boy. There's another reverb listing for the 405. There's the 400 watt version. Well, there's a 500 watt version. Jesus Christ. 1960s DR508 tube guitar amp head. That's at a Guitar Center store somewhere. Holy shit. They want $12,000 for that amp. DR508. Wow. Still available. Where is it? Hollywood. It had to be Hollywood. 500 tube watts. Jesus. Sound City. And hey, there's a reverb listing for another, for a Hiwatt G200R head, which is $432. Oh, but then he wants $334 to ship it. From somebody in Stockholm, Sweden. At least that's how much he wants to ship it over here to me in the U.S. Still, what's that, about $750, $760 or something like that? Still not a bad price, I guess. Weird. All kinds of Hiwatts for sale out there. I haven't looked at Hiwatts in a while. Cool. Ian's Guitar Shack says, I learned my lesson not to delete my channel and start a new one. That's the wrong way. Yeah, you don't want to do that, especially if you have an audience built up. Unless Reverb doesn't give you a choice. My buddy Brian, his channel's name was Cool Guitar Gear, and then for whatever reason, I don't even think he got three copyright strikes or anything like that. I think I don't know, he still doesn't know what he did to violate the terms of service, but they nixed him. They shut his channel down and made him start all over. And they let him use the same email address and create the same another new channel under the same name. But I don't know. I think it was I think that's horseshit, to be honest. But I don't make the rules. Edson Camargo says, once I used a Rumble 25 Fender bass amp in a gig, small venue, it worked, decent tone. Honestly, I mean, bass amps for guitars, a lot of bass amps anyway for guitars are actually really good, clean tone amps that aren't, that serve as pretty decent pedal platforms. I mean, you could do worse. You don't want to run plug a bass into a guitar amp. That's a great way to blow a guitar speaker, but yeah, plugging a guitar into a bass amp, clean tones all day. It's basically not much different from a PA speaker, really. Just a good flat tone. You have to plug a metal zone into the front of a good flat sounding bass amp sometime just to see how it sounds. Dripping Glass says, I'm done with the vintage crap. It's just old and expensive. We're living in an age where you can get great guitars and tones for reasonable prices. It's almost as if they build the new stuff to be better than the old stuff. I'm actually going to do a video on that very topic here. It might be in the form, I don't know. Maybe be a full video. I could still edit and do shit on my phone, but I can't do anything on my computers right now, which is a pain in the ass. So, but it also gave me a chance to use my new action camera. But yeah, I think vintage gear is cool. I love the history of it. I really do. I love the history of the guitar, and all the amps and all the individual stories. How the Les Paul came to be, and how the early competition between Gibson and Fender. It's all the stories that created. Uh, the old Marshall stories. How I love the Pete Townsend story. How the full stack came to be. I love the history of the instrument. I really do. There's some I'm a bit of a history buff anyway, but there's just a lot of really really cool stuff to learn. That I get a lot of interest out of, and so it's not like there's anything wrong with vintage gear. But when it comes to my actual playing what I want to play and sounding how I want to sound and getting the tones that I want to get, vintage gear ain't where it's at. At least not the golden age stuff anyway. I've much preferred for stuff from like the 80s on. So I own a few things that are older than that, but the vast majority of everything that I own is 80s or newer. Yeah, I'm not a vintage tone kind of guy. Scored a PVKB70, which is more or less a 4-range neutral 15-inch speaker to use for bass. Not bad for $52. It held nowadays any piece of gear for $52 is a good deal. You guys are talking amongst yourselves. Steph G V2 says those folks with 90s hand wired American made PVs talk about how much better they are than modern. I don't know about the hand wired stuff, but they're, if you're comparing, the PVs might be, I don't know, man. I guess we should define vintage. The technical retail definition of vintage, as far as guitar gear goes, is really anything that is 25 years or older, or worth more now than it was new. And at least that was the definition when I was still working on the retail side. There, that second half nowadays, with prices skyrocketing like it is, that's, a little bit more subject to, I can't, that Dimebag guitar that I sold earlier for $800 is worth way more than it was when I bought it brand new. Ain't nobody gonna buy that as a vintage instrument. Made in China, for crying out loud. So, but with like American and Japanese made stuff, that's might still be valid on a lot of things. The PVs though, PV's bread and butter is has for the last 30 years now been the 5150/6505 stuff. So when you hear people talking about those, the hand wired amps, I know those aren't hand wired, but those classic old vintage amps, that's probably what they grew up on. So, it's a shame. It's a shame that Eddie Van Halen died. Period. But it's a shame that people, profited off of his death, and the values of those things skyrocketed like they did. That era of PVs though, the 5150s, maybe and even like the VTMs and stuff like that before it. They did produce a lot of really really good amps, but and some good stuff since then. The Triple X's are suddenly getting popular again. What is it? I think the JSXs, I think were also the Triple X's. I think it was the same amp, something like that. No, the Triple X's eventually became the 3120s. I don't know. PV put out a lot of really popular tube amps back then, and people are still clamoring to buy them. It's one reason why they just revamped the 6505 series amps. Let's see. But the other half of that thought is Peavy's still putting out a lot of good stuff, hence the 6505, and the newly revamped 6505 amps, and among other things. Peavey, I think the Peavey Classics are still around, and those are some of the best sounding rock amps ever. Those things sound great. Devin Cinderwitch is here. Non-existent human says, I don't know, I'm still hooked on trying to get the lawsuit era guitars, cheapest of the old you can get usually. Some of that stuff, yes, if you can find it, but some of the lawsuit era stuff, like that lawsuit Ibanez lawsuit era stuff in the 70s is getting pretty pricey. Steph GV2 says, vintage stuff means easy to fix, but really needs fixing. In a lot of cases, that is very true. Edson Camargo says, playability for me is the main issue of vintage guitars. Nothing like a fast 14-inch radius neck. Of course, and that's a big factor in any guitar, I think. But I've gotten my hands on a lot of really old Gibsons and Fenders from the golden era of the 50s and 60s that played like shit. And I've got my hands on even more acoustics, like Martins and Gibson acoustics from that era that were had just played like dog shit. Gibson acoustics from especially, God, guys got a hold of those things, they just beat them to death. Finding one with a straight neck is hard enough to do. Finding one that that you can actually adjust the action down on to be playable again, there's not many of those out there. Yeah, vintage acoustics I'm really not a fan of. Block of the Lighter says, I only use a 67 Plexi. That's a killer amp. Bought it for FL. I don't know what that means. FL 75 in 1989. 35 pounds in today's money. You cannot play any cheaper. It has cost me less than $1,500 over the years in maintenance and repairs, toured and gigged. Nothing wrong with that, man. I love those late 60s era Plexis and stuff, man. They're hard to find. And when you do find them, they're expensive, but they are wonderful sounding amps. Gear Junkie 75 says Amazon has 22 fret necks for $7. I did not type that wrong. I have 7 on the way. Well, if you're into building shit, there you go. Fanner brand neck, $7 at minimum. I will have seven necks with which to perfect the art of round ball and frets, because I'm sure these will not be great. I'm actually expecting cheese shredder frets for $7 each. Yeah, that's the first thing I would expect with a neck that cheap, is that the fret wire is going to be way soft. You're going to wear them down pretty quickly. Non-existent human says, I can see Peavey getting bought up by another company. Yeah, Peavey's not going anywhere. They're doing just fine. I promise you. They're not going anywhere. One thing about Peavey, man, that a lot of people don't know is, Peavey actually, their profit margins are a little bit lower than some of the other amp companies. And the reason why is because where, something like with a lot of their PA gear, for example, where a lot of companies, even the high-end brands, will use a 30, part in their tweeters, in the horn section somewhere. that cost them about 32 cents for the part. Peavey will actually make the upgrade, and they'll use the part that cost them $2 or $3, instead of 20 or 30 cents. So, and they do that with a lot of stuff, and it's it seems like a pretty insignificant thing, but and maybe on the individual level it might be, but in a lot of cases it's a big difference in sound, it's a big difference in build quality, and at the end of the production line, when those that $1.50 difference or whatever it is, after you crank out a couple thousand amps, that adds up in a hurry, and all that gets factored into the cost of the amplifier. So a lot of people don't know that about Peavey, and when I learned it, it kind of renewed my my respect for them. So, and that's also another reason why you still see Peavey stuff, even the garbage stuff that sounds like shit that's still, from the 70s, it's still just hanging around in somebody's basement, still works just fine. I gotta give Peavey credit a lot, for a lot of things. It's tough to kill their gear. Gibson should buy Peavey, have Mason make them as lower end amp lines. Nah, it'll never happen. Hartley ain't gonna sell. He's not gonna sell. He doesn't need to. David Cinderwood says my only vintage item is my Boss DM2 pedal. Oh, and a 94, 95 Telly. I still can't consider 90, Fender mid 90s Fenders as vintage now. That ain't sitting well with me. And another thing, it's from that era, it's got to be American made. I mean, no real vintage collector is going to have any interest in a made in Mexico Telly. Mexican stuff in that era, that's not vintage. That's just old. Guitar Stand 11, Litwin says, then Gibson would own Trace Elliot again. Also true, but when did Gibson ever own Trace Elliot? I didn't know they did, actually. Yeah, trust me, Peavey's not going to sell it out to anybody. They're not going anywhere. Honestly, I think the only reason that Mesa sold is because I think Randall Smith finally wanted to retire. And that was the only way that he could, guarantee that his employees would still have a job. Steph GV2 says, my one vintage thing that I've kept is my highly modded 73 CBS Strat. Stock, it was the worst guitar ever made in America. I've been saying forever, 70s Fenders are pieces of shit. Man. And it's, I've been saying that for I don't know how long now, and some people still get so freaking mad when they hear me say it. 70s Fenders are pieces of shit. Gibson Junkies 35 or Gear Junkie 35 says I have a pair of Gibson speaker cabs with 212 and 12-inch horn. PA cabs from 6971. Jensen speaker sounds awesome, not hi-fi but very unique. Those old Gibson amps are actually pretty cool if you can find them. William De Silva says I wish Peavey would do more with the Buddha line. I have a Super Drive. I agree. I have a Super Drive 18 and love it. That Mamma Jamma just growls. Friedman designed the preamp section in them. Buddhas are badass when you can find them, if you can find them. Yeah, I agree. I wish Peavey would kind of put that back out on the market for us. I see Dougie, the Dougie making an appearance behind me. You must have seen her. Oh, yep, there she is, actually. Oh, well. My screen is delayed, but yeah, you guys saw her tail flapping around. MIJ. Okay, yeah, that would qualify as vintage then, from the 90s. Edson Camargo says, Robert, what about late 70s Music Man guitars? Well, that was Leo Fender's second company. So, he started, he had a 10-year non-compete that he signed with, when he sold to CBS. So he couldn't do anything for a decade from 65. So 75 hit, and he started. I think it was Ernie Ball. They started, I don't know how that transition happened actually, but he started Music Man, and was designing kind of similar stuff, but but it was still new as he was working on the he'd implemented the active pickup thing and pretty much all their guitars. Nobody had ever done that before. Then he had a falling out with whoever his partner was, and then they sold. He sold out his half of the company, and then that's when they became Ernie Ball Music Man. But yeah, those are built in the Fender-esque kind of sort of guitars from that era. Leo was building it better than his old company was, that's for sure. That CBS cost $250 in 1975. Not cheap, but a bargain. Then Charvels were selling for $400. I don't remember the last time I've seen a Charvel from even the 80s. People start, I guess when Fender started, when they relaunched the brand and started producing them again in the 2000s, people must have started hoarding them. It's the only thing I can think of. Shit, I would have. I don't know. Well, guys, I got a split. I've got Gotham Knights waiting for me, and I'm going to go order me some lunch from Portillo's, and I'm going to go play me some Gotham Knights. So